Warren Buffett is worth around $150 billion. He still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He eats McDonald's for breakfast almost every day, pays with exact change, and once said, and I am not making this up, that he decides what to order based on how the stock market opened that morning. Bad day? 2 sausage patties. Good day? Bacon, egg, and cheese. This is the world's greatest investor, a man who has beaten the market for 60 consecutive years, a man whose annual shareholder letters are studied in business schools like religious texts. And the more you actually look into how he got here, the weirder it gets. Warren Edward Buffett was born in Omaha, Nebraska in 1930. His father was a stockbroker. This matters. Most kids go to the candy store. 6-year-old Warren Buffett bought 6 packs of Coca-Cola from his grandfather's grocery store for 25 cents and sold them individually for 5 cents each. He cleared a nickel of profit per pack. At 6. By 11, he had read every book on investing in the Omaha Public Library. Not skimmed, read. He later said he'd read some of them twice. At 11, he bought his first stock, 3 shares of Citi Service Preferred at $38 each. The stock dropped to $27. He held. It came back up to $40. He sold. He made $5. Then it went to $200. This is the first and last time Warren Buffett ever panic sold. He never forgot it. By 13, Buffett was filing his own tax returns. He deducted his bicycle as a business expense because he used it for his paper route. The IRS, to their credit, allowed it. He was running 5 paper routes simultaneously, serving 500 customers. At 14, he used his savings to buy 40 acres of farmland in Nebraska and rented it back to a tenant farmer. He was 14. When his father told him he had to move to Washington, D.C. for his new job, teenage Warren Buffett reportedly cried, not because he'd miss his friends, because he didn't want to leave his business operations. He enrolled at Wharton, hated it, felt he already knew more than his professors, which, to be fair, he probably did, and transferred back to the University of Nebraska, finishing his degree in 3 years. Then he applied to Harvard Business School. They rejected him. In one of the great institutional errors in American history, Harvard looked at the future greatest investor alive and said, "No thank you." So he went to Columbia instead because he'd read a book called The Intelligent Investor by a man named Benjamin Graham, and Graham taught there. Graham's philosophy was simple and, at the time, revolutionary. Don't try to predict where the market is going. Find companies that are worth more than their stock price. Buy them, wait. He called it value investing. The stock market, he said, is a voting machine in the short term and a weighing machine in the long term. Buffett absorbed this like oxygen. He graduated top of his class. Graham gave him the only A+ he'd ever awarded. Buffett then offered to work for Graham's firm for free. Graham said no. Buffett went back to Omaha, started teaching an investing class at the University of Nebraska. He was 21. Several of his students were older than him and found this uncomfortable. He didn't care. Then Graham called. There was a job available. Buffett packed up and moved to New York immediately. He worked there for 2 years, learning everything. Then Graham retired and closed the firm. And Buffett went back to Omaha, this time with a plan. In 1956, Warren Buffett started a private investment partnership with $105,100 in capital. $100,000 of it came from friends and family. His own contribution was $100. His fee structure was unusual. He took no management fee. Instead, he took 25% of any profits above 6%. In other words, if he didn't make you money, he made nothing. In the first year, the fund returned 10% while the Dow returned 8%, then 32%, then 24%, then 20%, then 46%. Every single year, better than the market. By 1962, he had 90 clients and roughly $7.2 million under management. He was 32 years old. And the whole time, while running circles around Wall Street from a small office above a bank in downtown Omaha, he was reading, obsessively, relentlessly. He has said he spent the early years of his career reading 600 to 1,000 pages a day. Annual reports, trade journals, corporate filings, industry manuals. Not for specific stock, just to know things, just to fill the library in his head so that when an opportunity appeared, he'd already understand the business inside out before anyone else had opened the report. In 1965, he bought a failing textile company in Massachusetts called Berkshire Hathaway. He would later call this his worst investment. The textile business eventually collapsed. But by then, he'd used the company's cash flow to quietly buy insurance companies, newspapers, razor blade manufacturers, and candy stores. Berkshire Hathaway became the vehicle. Today, it's worth over $1 trillion. The $10,000 you would have needed to buy in at the beginning of the partnership in 1956 is worth somewhere, depending on when you're watching this, north of $500 million. He still lives in the same house. He still eats McDonald's. He still reads 500 pages a day. Most people look at Warren Buffett and see a kindly grandfather figure with a folksy quote about being greedy when others are fearful. What they're actually looking at is someone who decided at age 6 that he was going to understand money better than every other human being on the planet, and then simply never stopped.